All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, my goodness. Great to have everybody along for what will be one historic ride today. You were there the year it all happened. You may have felt, in fact, and I think there's a reasonable argument for it, a bit gaslit by the people behind Biden. Who is he? Now we're seeing more and more in the way of reports along the lines of he's actually been in and out of it a bit more than we've been hearing. We're going to talk about all of it with John Rothmann, but more to the point, much of it pertains to his future in relation to Top of Ticket. And now, I would say, and this has happened so very quickly, but it happened as a result of his debate. Of course, it's not a debate, that TV show performance. But as we said at the time, it's a very important TV show. I think there's an inevitability to this. I think he is, he's done. Yeah, but we'll get more to that with both our brother and presidential historian, John Rothmann, and also in an expansive Bowling with Biden segment that follows. But that's not all today. In fact, I have someone on the show today that is quite appropriate to this very scenario. Because you may remember in the movie Rocky. Commish, you remember the movie Rocky. It's every guy's thing. You're down, you're facing the tough opponent. Everybody's betting against you. Rocky Balboa from the scraps of Philadelphia. He lived in that tenement house with nothing but raw eggs and a dream. And what did he do? He slowly went out there. He ran the streets of Philly, and then he ascended those Philadelphia steps, and he danced on top of that entire Philadelphia scene, and the music that played was the most inspiring music that movies had seen in that decade. That songwriter joins us today.
What?
That's right. It's kind of a palate cleanser to a lot of the politics we'll be doing, but Carol Connors not only is a songwriter, but I guess had a lot to do with Elvis and some other significant figures, right, Kim?
She's a singer in her own right. She's had some hits as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to hear her stories.
So that'll be in hour 2. We'll be heavy politics in hour 1. And I'm looking forward to talking with John Rothmann as well. I don't think, no offense, Joe Biden, I don't think we can play that music loud enough to bring you back to to those Philly steps.
No.
Yeah. Gonna Fly Now is not going to get it done. I think he's going to fly, but it's going to be fly away. I'll speak about some of what's happening with Biden, as I say, in just a moment. I also wanted to tell you that we will be looking at the environment with our eco-journalist in the second hour, Belinda Waymouth. And so there's good news and bad news in that, she told me. So we'll get to some of that as well. And there is a chunk of Trump, news out of Trump land. It's related to his VP pick, and I think you'll find that interesting as well. So much to do today, yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think it's pretty clear the polling is pretty grim for President Biden following his, again, we'll call it a debate because that's what it's called, but it's obviously a TV show.
Oh.
What was that? Kim froze up. But yeah, there wasn't much debating going on anyway. Had it been a debate, it would have maybe even been uglier if that was possible. But the polling shows him now down not only in swing states, but in 3 new states that aren't even swing states. So the disaster that was that television performance is just becoming more disastrous by the hour. The key here is, I think there's several keys. One is a political matter. The degree to which you can keep a coalition together that believes in you and can be sufficiently strong to propel you to a victory. I think the answer is you can't. I mean, all the polling would suggest that you are getting eroded in terms of any kind of popular support. You haven't done the one thing that you needed to do, which is really go out there and handle this aggressively. To be fair, Joe Biden did go out the next day and he did that one stump speech and he seemed vital and vibrant. But after that, there has been nothing. He's been cloistered with his family in that, I guess it was a Vanity Fair shoot that was planned,
right.
and Jill Biden, his wife, seems to be the leader of that crew now. I guess it seems as though that family has really closed ranks quite tightly, and Jill Biden may be the commander-in-chief of the family anyway, and the key to decision-making here. But at some point, despite public support, there's enough private conversation and there's enough loss of donors that you will have no choice. And I really think that's where Joe Biden is. And this is not to say that Joe Biden is some vacant weekend at Bernie's guy who they prop up. I do believe that he's probably generally in better shape than we saw on Thursday night. But I also believe that there are more Thursday nights than they're telling us.
And here's the thing. What if, the missiles start flying during one of the Thursday nights? Don't you want someone who's able to be on with it and making, good decisions 24/7?
Well, this is what's interesting to me because this is another part of this question. You're talking about the demands of the presidency, which are immense. I mean, he's been flying all over the place. I don't know, given the state of his physical being and maybe mental acuity, that I would have allowed him to go flying all over the place. Maybe he wasn't at the G7, or you send Kamala Harris. I don't know. But I don't see that as... on the other hand, you kind of have to, as a world leader, attend. Right. I mean, as the leader of the USA. But to your point, you have around you, and I think it's pretty clear in the case of the Biden administration, people who can handle with great competence those issues that might come up. And these are highly skilled, the Ron Klains of the world and those who, Lloyd Austins of the world, the people who occupy that administration, they know what they're doing. I mean, if Biden had just taken an Ambien or something and they couldn't, they had to make a decision, I think they could cobble together a decent decision. They're highly competent people. But there is the other side of it, which is your relationship with the American people and with campaigning. I don't think he's got the stuff to do that. And here is the part that I resent. I think they knew that. And I think that's the gaslighting that I talk about. You told us that he has, he's actually so impressive in meetings. He's like, Stephen Hawking meets Neil deGrasse Tyson in these meetings. He's just, the mind is amazing. It's sharp. He covers, and you hear that from more and more people. I'll give you an example from just this morning. Anthony Fauci talked about how sharp Biden was. Here it is. Fauci speaks out around doubts of Biden's mental state. Dr. Anthony Fauci defended President Joe Biden as analytical.
It's not fake. That's real.
But Fauci said that when he was working for the Biden administration, the president seemed capable and analytical. And he goes on, did he have a bad cold? Did he take an antihistamine to make him groggy? I don't know, said Fauci. Okay, that's what Fauci said. So, look, I'll take Fauci at his word, but my feeling is, hey, guys, we're out of excuses. He had a cold. He was on an antihistamine. He'd been traveling. I'd heard that. He'd been traveling, but he'd been back in this country for almost 2 weeks. I really feel, I'm sorry, but I really feel that Father Time has caught up with Joe Biden. And John Rothmann may disagree with me, but it almost doesn't matter because, as I was saying, there's the political track that this is moving on, and then there's the practical presidential track. I think from a practical presidential narrative track, which is what you're talking about, something happens in the middle of the night, Mr. President, we need your attention. I believe there is a staff there and a highly competent administration in place, and there isn't an issue. I would much prefer to have Joe Biden on a hospital gurney than Donald Trump awakened in the middle of the night with some emergency situation. So please make no mistake about it. But then there is the political, and the political realities are all grim. I do not believe Joe Biden can win this election, and I think he has to drop out. The question is, will he understand that? And can that be communicated to the boss, who increasingly appears to be Jill Biden? And this is the last thing I'll say about that. There are a lot of interests around the White House and around the presidency. You have no idea the infrastructure, the layers of people whose livelihood, whose hopes, whose futures depend on the loyalties and the plans they've made around Joe Biden and a Joe Biden presidency. It starts with Joe Biden, but it extends to his cabinet and on down. There's so many functionaries in the White House who do so much, or White House adjacent. It's a massive organization. All of those people have an interest in what? In Joe Biden continuing. So that's a very big chorus also. That's why powerful Democrats have to come forward. And you've heard, I think, the first bits of that, and you're hearing more and more now as the days proceed. Albert, you have the poll up. We have a poll up in the chat. In the chat, there should be a poll that offers you a chance to predict when Joe Biden will drop out of the race. What are the choices?
Some votes for Tuesday already, so it's in the live chat. A lot now, a lot coming in. He won't drop out, so I'll keep you updated throughout the show.
Albert, thank you.
We do offer you the option that he won't drop out, but we also offer you the chance to predict when he will.
Do you think that if the same thing happened at the debate with Trump, that Republicans would be calling for Trump to drop out? Or is this just a logical thing with Democrats where they look at the situation and go, uh-oh, we have a problem? Or if it was a Republican situation, would they be circling the wagons even tighter? Because we've seen Trump have these weird speech moments where it looks like he goes off the rails too. No one's calling for him to step down.
I think it's a great question, and I think it's a great point that's implied, which is the old line used to be Democrats fall in love, GOP falls in line.
Yeah.
The GOP, they close ranks. And in this case, you've got a very intimidating, frankly, bullying figure at the top. Donald Trump, they wouldn't dare cross him. Yeah. Their political futures are on the line. I think he could have a whole full-on Mitch McConnell 20-second freeze-up, and I think they would explain it away somehow. I mean, they explained away how vibrant Biden sounded at the State of the Union by talking about the fact that Biden was all hopped up. Remember, they had played this card long ago. They had said that Joe Biden was diminished, so significantly diminished mentally, didn't know where he was, he's not really the president. And then he comes out in the State of the Union and he crushes it and he ad-libs a bunch of stuff. You remember he was getting heckled and he ad-libbed and handled it. He was
amazing.
Like a nightclub comic up there.
Yeah.
Right. So they say, well, he was on drugs. He's on amphetamines. I think they should do drug testing. Now he has a rough outing. I mean, really rough outing. Yeah. And now there's more and more reporting that these rough outings are far more common than we've been led to believe. And for that reason, I just think that we're in a different spot, but it is also true that that spot is one that we deal with in a much different way than the GOP does. Media is steering this narrative. That's not wrong. I think Josh is right when he says that. The media is cranking up the heat on this narrative. This is to be blunt about it, it's a sexy topic, you know? Somebody who is so addled that he's got to think about dropping out of the race. But it's not so outrageous as a narrative either. But to Kim's point, and I think it's important because this is one that I maintained for a long time because, I was a big defender of Joe Biden. By the way, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. I didn't want Joe Biden to be president to begin with. I was behind Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Those are my picks. And I wasn't happy with Joe Biden. But Joe Biden, give him credit. He ran, I think, as a centrist, and he delivered as a centrist. He has a really great track record. The infrastructure plan, the CHIPS plan, I mean, what he did for veterans. It's actually a really long list of things. He's an environmental president, I think, the likes of which we will never see again. And yet, he's not a perfect president, and maybe there's some really gaping holes in some of his policy decision making. But having said that, I think he's really got a track record to be proud of. But I want to be clear, I'm not a rah-rah Biden guy. But I did feel as though this is what the Democrats do. They shoot their own. They shot Al Franken before he even had a chance. I think Al Franken could have been president. Al Franken was brilliant. He was hardworking. He was dedicated. He was a public servant. And Democrats dragged him out. They knew another Democrat could take that seat and it wouldn't be an issue. And Al Franken succumbed to that pressure. There's so much more at stake here. And I don't know. I'm ready to take a meeting with the audience. That's what I love about this particular medium, that I can see your comments and we can discuss it further. And Rothmann, I'm sure, has his own very strong take, which comes with decades and decades of history. But I just know what the situation is now. And I thought, wow, what an easy debate to win. You have a guy there in Donald Trump who is just making stuff up in all the ways possible. You could have taken credit for things like the infrastructure plan, and you didn't. I mean, it was the weirdest night. It was horrible to see. And it made us wonder who is the real guy. So, some people feel it's all just pressure. But there is, and we had Cenk on, earlier in the week, there is a growing chorus of people who feel that that pressure is appropriate given the shortcomings of Joe Biden and that disastrous performance. I mean, it's reflective of something, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he was so diminished. It was like watching a different guy, wasn't it, Kim? I mean,
completely. It was shocking. I was shocked. I was very shocked. I was very surprised. In all the things I expected from that debate, that was not it. But what's interesting is that Republicans have been kind of beating that drum for a while. And I thought, that was just one of their talking points, that they were manipulating videos and that he wasn't diminished, because I saw him at the State of the Union, right? I mean, he seemed like perfectly fine to me. So I was pretty surprised.
It was one of their talking points. You were right. Mm-hmm. It's just that he delivered one of their talking points on that night. And now it's created the situation we're in. Biden's expected to meet with governors and congressional leaders today. That's probably going on. Kim will update you on that.
Yep.
And in conversations with more than 24 current and former Democratic officials, as well as donors and longtime Biden allies, all of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity, of course, to avoid alienating Biden, many of these people say they have already made up their minds that the president should quit. But they feel the decision needs to come from him, and it needs to come this week.
It's scary. I'm sorry, please finish.
They've held off going to Biden directly, hoping he would make the decision himself, but patience is wearing thin. Multiple Democrats told CNN, amid signs that Biden has taken no steps to seriously consider the mounting concerns, that he's poised to travel to swing states this weekend, aides say, a sign that he has no plans of changing course, that they have concerns. On Tuesday, yesterday, ABC announced Biden's going to sit down with George Stephanopoulos. Well, that should do it. The first TV interview since the debate. The clips will air Friday. There was hope that the president's family would convince him to step aside, given how badly the debate went. However, at Biden's retreat on Sunday at Camp David, that's the one I was talking about, it became apparent the parent's family rallied around his decision to continue his campaign, blaming the staff for his missteps. I will say this. If you know this guy is in this kind of shape, first of all, he should step aside. And he should have stepped aside a long time ago. And I blame the Democratic machine for not allowing a primary. A legitimate primary should have gone down in this country. It is obscene that this Democratic machine, the same one that robbed Bernie Sanders, that they got in the way of a legitimate challenge to a future here with a candidate that's viable, vital, and represents potential to stave off a despotic leader who is waiting to take office. So that's the Democratic machine, the DNC. They prevented those primaries. So I'm very angry about that. But now let me just address his staff. If you know that he is struggling this way, then it is malpractice to put him on that stage. You guys wanted that debate. That was your debate. Those were your rules. How could you put that man up there? You should all be fired. You should all be fired and be ashamed of what you've done. That's his staff. But the reality is the reality. And we'll talk more about it. But I see not a lot of good choices for Joe Biden.
Mindy says the Democrats need to be honest with us, the American people. And I feel this is a huge point, because if you feel lied to or you feel duped somehow that they knew this was going on and didn't say anything and kind of tried to, cover it up and push it all forward, then is there a lack of trust now? Do we have a broken trust between the Democratic Party and the people that may have voted Democrat?
Well, you have broken trust, but the way that would, manifest itself is they would just not vote. The fear, I think, that you'd get a Trump presidency is so significant and so important that it may be one of those things where, like, I'll deal with my mistrust with you later. You know what I mean? It's like when you have a fight with your husband or something and you go, we'll talk about this later tonight. Right now, we've got to put out the fire in the kitchen or whatever it is. I think that it's true, though, that we all wanted to believe, he's mostly good. I mean, obviously, he's older. You can see him slowing down, but he seems pretty good. And I got to say, my friends have places in Rehoboth. I grew up in Washington, D.C. My dad, I know a lot of people who work at the White House and stuff, and we all used to vacation in Rehoboth. I mean, we were middle class, pretty, just you'd rent a motel rooms from stuff, but we'd have a great time. We were just kids, but that's where these guys go, Rehoboth, okay? Rehoboth Beach, Delaware is where the Bidens go, and they have summer. So I mentioned that. You'll forgive me for the preamble, but I was just trying to explain that I get a lot of reports from people who see Joe Biden there, many reports. And I even see pictures of them talking to Joe Biden. He's on his bike all the time. So there is a sense like, well, Joe Biden seems like he's in pretty good shape. He's always biking at Rehoboth, and he always seems like he's kind of got it together. But I don't really understand how mental acuity works. I mean, maybe you can ride your bike and look good, and yet somehow, once in a while you click out and don't know, what's going on. But this meeting today that Joe Biden is having with governors, it's significant, but I think he may not be able to stop this bleeding. Help me with this. Let me just see what the...
Luis for $5 says sick plus jet lag plus over-prepared plus dog ate my homework equals just shut up already. You're making things worse by keeping it going.
Oh, yeah. I do. Luis, thanks for the $5. I do.
Big shout out.
I do like mad respect for all those excuses, though. Yeah. Hey, brother, I know how it feels. You know what I mean? Sometimes you want it to go better. Charles Floyd, howdy from Gilead, Texas. What up, Texas?
Big shout out.
Well, you can all go to hell. I'm going to
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Damn straight, man. Howdy from the heart of Gilead, Texas. Thank you, MTS, for being a voice of reason in these surreal times. Wow, isn't that nice? Charles really Floyd, nice. Thank you. Wow, I love my Texans. My brother lives in Texas. Yeah. He's He's a full-on Texan now, man.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Yeah, right on. Thank you, Charles. Thank you for the love, man. Really appreciate it. We're a crowd-funded show, so when you and the crowd fund us at all, we make a big deal out of it. Donald the Maine Coon, there's the 25th Amendment to remove Biden now. You could remove him. It is true. This is an interesting question for John Rothmann. Remind me, put that on ice for a second. Mm-hmm. Here is the interesting thing about that question. It's sort of a moot point, but it's nonetheless a really interesting technical question that Rothmann can probably answer. You could remove him. By the way, the 25th Amendment is a lot harder to pull off than it's talked about. It was talked about a lot with Donald Trump. You need the cabinet to get together. There has to be a vote. Then it has to be, and there has to be Congress involved. It's a pretty big deal. But let's assume you could pull it off, the 25th Amendment. Technically, the delegates would stay with Joe Biden because it has nothing to do with his presidency. Those delegates were pledged to him as a candidate. And so I believe that he would retain those delegates. You need him to release those delegates. Now, the only person who might actually have, so we'll ask John Rothmann. I love that. Thank you for a provocative question. The only thing I would say is that he has a significant war chest. Anybody else who would try to take that top of ticket is going to be starting from zero. Now, maybe you could get the money.
Can't they roll it over to the next candidate?
No. It doesn't work that way. It wasn't pledged to some general fund. It was pledged to Biden, Harris. So Harris is probably the only person who would have legit rights to that money, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
I think it's $200 million. So
he still was outpacing Trump in June with contributions. Yeah.
Then Trump told all the oil company executives, "I'll give you whatever you want. You draw up whatever plans. You tell me where you want to drill, and we'll do it." You know, and he got a big dump of cash. Gaia says, "I feel like Project 2025 is coming." It does have that feeling. It does have that feeling.
Project 2025 is where they're prepared, right? They've got all these people in place. So on day one, if Trump should get back in the White House, they're ready to roll with all these people doing all these conservative things and all the ways that you can think that they would do it.
Well, it's also, it's the architecture, essentially, of what would be that, which you just described, which is a reimagining of the U.S. government. Much of the U.S. government would be dismantled. The civil service, that kind of these people who kind of lifetime GSers, government service people would be removed. You'd end that program. There's a whole way in which they would change the structure of things, such that hang on. Is everything okay? Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. But yes, but essentially, it's the overall strategy and architecture of what the next 4 years would look like and beyond. So, can we quickly take Kim's news, Albert, and then I'd like to get to John Rothmann. Is that cool?
Yes,
I know that I have done. I just kind of started here, and I'm sorry I didn't really. I told Albert, okay, I'm going to do this, and this, and then of course I just started. And, sorry, Albert.
We still have that poll going up, and after the show, you can still talk. If you still want to talk about it, that'll be in the community tab. So after the show and during the show, if you want to talk about all that.
Exactly. So if you want to give us the day you think that Biden will withdraw from the race, or that he won't withdraw from the race. That is up in our live chat now, and it will be up in our community chat after the show is done.
Albert, thank you.
And thank you, Albert, for pulling that together. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
The great presidential historian, author, and former colleague of ours joins us, John Rothmann, next. And we'll talk more about this, and he'll put a lot of specifics on this from a practical, political perspective as well. But first, Kim's news, and she'll update the very latest on this situation. And I'll just mention one other thing. My brothers and sisters in California, there's incredible heat right now, and it is scary, unhealthy, and fires are burning through California. And once again, it's a California summer that has peaked in very dangerous ways. And I'm thinking of everyone in so many of these areas. And please be safe through the weekend. But we'll continue to watch that emerging situation as well. So all of that with Kim and then Rothman next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Well, as discussed already here on the Mark Thompson Show, we're looking at multiple reports today saying that President Biden may leave the presidential race in the coming days. The New York Times and CNN are reporting that President Biden talked with a key ally about concerns he may not be able to convince the public that he's up for the job after his shaky debate performance. Both reports say he will weigh whether or not to end his bid if the public perception about his fitness for office doesn't get any better. How to make it better? A planned sit-down discussion with George Stephanopoulos on Friday evening. And we'll see how it goes. Meanwhile, former President Trump will not be sentenced in his New York hush money case now until September. Going to be a while. This comes after the Trump lawyers filed a letter with the judge looking to set aside the recent guilty verdict. The sentencing will now be delayed until September 18th at the very earliest. Lawyers asked for more time to go over any potential impact from the Supreme Court's immunity decision, which gave Trump immunity for official acts in office. One Texas town wants to make it illegal for people to travel on their roads if they're helping a woman get an out-of-state abortion. Can't travel on their roads to do it. It's just like the state's near-total abortion ban. It would be enforced through private lawsuits. Amarillo, Texas voters will take up the suggestion in November. Opponents say the law would be unconstitutional and would trigger lawsuits. Speaking of traveling on the roadways, the 4th of July holiday travel surge is underway, and the TSA expects this year to be record-breaking. TSA spokesperson Lisa Farbstein says the agents could screen more than 3 million airline passengers on a single day at any point this summer. TSA is seeing roughly 5.5% increase in passengers this July 4th holiday compared to last year, with Farbstein saying airlines adding flights is what is leading to this uptick.
There's never been anything like this.
We are back from the pandemic and people are traveling all over the place. This is horrible. An investigation is underway after someone left a large dead turtle at the Massachusetts home of the parents of a blogger known as Turtle Boy. Police have confirmed that an investigation into possible harassment and animal cruelty is underway. That dead turtle was found at the home of the parents of Aiden Kearney in hours after a mistrial was declared in Karen Reed's trial. Kearney strongly believes Reed is innocent and has advocated on her behalf on his blog and social media pages. So now comes the animal cruelty. 2 San Francisco motorcycle officers are in the hospital after a head-on crash. They were riding down Cesar Chavez last night when they collided with an Uber driver who may have been going the wrong way. San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott won't say just yet who crossed the center line, but he called it a violent collision. He describes the officers as being in good spirits, but it's unclear how badly they were injured. Both of them, though, are expected to recover. Some new developments in that horrific San Francisco crash that killed an entire family. The 78-year-old driver who hit 4 people in March with her SUV is now being charged with vehicular manslaughter. Investigators say she was speeding and on the wrong side of the road when she rammed into a mother, a father, and their 2 baby boys at a bus stop in the West Portal neighborhood. That woman hasn't been rearrested yet. Apparently, they're working with attorneys on that. LeBron James reportedly staying put with the Los Angeles Lakers. According to multiple reports, James plans to sign a 2-year, $104 million contract. At 39, James is the oldest active player in the NBA. The news
wants to play with his son, right?
Yeah, the news comes a day after his son, Bronny James, signed a 2-year deal with the Lakers as well.
And Albert is about as good a player as Bronny James is. Isn't that right, Albert?
Yeah, well, I just want to know what he's going to call. Like, if he's calling for LeBron to pass him the ball, what is he saying, Mark? What do you think he's going to say?
Dad, I'm open.
Dad, I'm open.
Dad, I told you I'm open. I've been open half the game.
That's so funny. And lastly, as California really struggles with retail theft laws, someone put up a sign outside the Louis Vuitton store in downtown San Francisco. The sign reads, "Stolen goods must remain under $950.
Oh my
Wait,
God.
what? It appears to be a jab at California's shoplifting laws where anything under $950 is a misdemeanor, not a felony. The sign has gone viral on social media. It's on Fox TV reporting the city's Department of Public Works quickly responded, but the sign had disappeared already.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Yeah, Ron gets it. It's crazy.
Talk the sign could have been a fake, that it maybe wasn't even really hanging up. Maybe somebody photoshopped it or AI generated it.
I see, of course.
But yeah, it's pretty funny. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Time for a sip, everybody. Get ready. Here it comes.
Yeah. Oh, the best coffee on earth.
Put that coffee down.
I'm sorry. It's just the best coffee on earth. And every time I have a sip, I get a magical feeling, which is Coachella Valley Coffee is truly, I think you'll find, the richest, most delicious coffee on earth. There are many different roasts. All of it is hand roasted. They have retained the hand roasted commitment even as they've grown. They were the official coffee of the BNP tennis tournament, which is, featured on ESPN, and, had Djokovic there and everybody else. And it's a huge tournament. And you'd think, well, they would just, at some point they go automated. Nope, they don't. Coachella Valley Coffee is maintaining every bag you get is hand roasted. And then there are tasting notes on each one. So check it all out. There are also plenty of teas. Courtney drinks tea, and she loves the tea. And so many of you have told me you love their teas. They have loose leaf. They have all the options are there at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And the key is anything you get at the website, you get 10% off on. Hit Mark T. Use that code at checkout and get 10% off. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Mark T is your discount code. And however you like your coffee, they've got coffee for you. So check them out.
I'm serving the Coachella Valley Coffee iced tea on July 4th for the family gathering.
Oh, I love
There's
it.
never been anything like this.
Yeah,
I have
really
one of those big dispensers, with a little spigot at the bottom. So I'm going to make a big thing of iced tea.
Oh, I love that.
It's going to be really good.
Oh, that does sound good.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is the Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Hey, thanks for everybody subscribing. Maybe there's some new people here as well. Really appreciate all of you. We try to give you a real heavy dose of what's going on in the news. We're kind of politics-centric, of course, but we also try to have some palate cleansers from time to time in an hour, too. As I mentioned, the music that you would like to hear in the Biden house, probably the Gonna Fly Now, Rocky making a comeback music, was written by our guest who joins us in the second hour, and she's also written a great new book. So that's your palate cleanser. But right now we're hip deep in what is a serious question for the future of America, and that is who will lead the Democratic Party and who will lead this nation for the next 4 years. And there are significant questions as to the mental acuity of Joe Biden. And there are now significant questions, given his horrendous debate, again, with air quotes, performance on that Thursday night. There are significant questions as to whether or not he will remain in the Democratic race. It looks as though with increasing pressure, he may have no choice but to pull out. We will now find out from someone who is a brilliant presidential historian and lecturer, author, and former KGO talk show host. Here's John Rothmann, everybody. Hi, John.
Hi, Mark.
And tell me where you are. Where are you on this, sir?
Well, we will never erase from our memories Joe Biden in the joint appearance with Donald Trump. It was a disaster for Joe Biden, and everybody understands it was a disaster. And the question now is, what will Joe Biden do? Joe Biden is not a quitter, but I would remind you he has to face political reality. It is clear to me that most Americans, Democrats and Republicans, now view Joe Biden as not being up for another 4 years as president. He'll finish his term, okay. The Democrats will have to nominate another candidate. Despite the fact that Bill Maher is calling for the nomination of Gavin Newsom, it is clear to me that the next nominee of the Democratic Party will be Kamala Harris. I think there's little doubt about it. There's no way in my mind that the party would repudiate Kamala Harris. It also has to do with a fundraising issue because money has been raised for the Biden-Harris campaign, and certainly that includes Kamala Harris. It is a tragedy for Joe Biden, but 81 years old can be a vigorous time, or it can be a time when you slow down. And it's clear that Joe Biden is not up for another 4 years as president. Please note I said not up for another 4 years. He can finish out his term. He can finish it honorably, but it's clear that it's over.
So then in the implied narrative that you're talking about, he would not step down as president. He would simply release his delegates to Kamala Harris?
Yes, that's right.
And how does that work exactly? In other words, would that happen at the convention or?
No, who knows? But those delegates are legally pledged to Joe Biden. They have to vote for him. Not all of them, but most of them have to vote for him, enough to secure the nomination. And he would have to release those delegates. And then he would have to make an endorsement. I think he would not allow for an open convention. That would not be in the interests of the Biden-Harris administration. It is Biden-Harris. Harris is the designated heir apparent, and it would seem to me to be very logical. That would give Joe Biden, by the way, a chance to continue to be active in the campaign. He could campaign all over the country for Kamala Harris if he's up for it. Then the next question is, who does Kamala Harris take as her running mate? And that will also be an interesting question, which no one is really considering yet. Everyone is focused on Donald Trump's potential VP pick, which will come shortly. He has
well,
to
that's the reason no one's talking about it is like 4 steps ahead. But I would also say to you, John, before I get to that, the 4 steps ahead, I'll take you back to the first step. So you're saying he'll release the delegates to Kamala Harris. So essentially others who would lobby for, and this is not a small number of people, okay? Don't discount this group within the Democratic Party who already feel as though the Democratic Party gaslit them about Joe Biden's condition. They would want an actual discussion as to who will succeed top of ticket.
There may be a discussion.
I agree with you, which is that war chest, and I made this point in the first hour, is significant, and only Harris has it. But
there may be a discussion, Mark, but there is no other candidate for the Democratic Party than the sitting vice president of the United States. And you will note that Joe Biden refers to her constantly as his partner. And it is inconceivable to me that the Democratic Party could pass over Kamala Harris. She's been vice president for the last 3.5 years. She is a woman of color. She is a woman, obviously. And she has tremendous constituency. If you notice the polls today, they show her running even with Donald Trump. So in my mind, it's a very clear situation. For Joe Biden, and this is the thing people don't grasp, it's hard to concede that you can't continue. It's hard to agree to step down. We've seen that with our own colleagues in media. People, once you concede your age, you can't take it back. And that's the problem Joe Biden has. It's dealing with his own mortality.
Kim?
If the Democrats are going to stick with Kamala Harris, which you say they have to, wouldn't it make more sense for President Biden to step aside now and give her 5 months to be
that's what he's going to do.
So
if he's going to do it, it will come quickly.
So she'll have 5 months to show what she can do, right? And she goes into the Democratic National Convention, or she goes into the campaign, an incumbent president. So you give her a leg up.
No, she goes into the campaign as the vice president, who is the designated nominee of the Democratic Party and who would succeed to the presidency if she wins.
No, but what I'm saying is, if he steps down right now and she becomes the president...
No, not stepping down from the presidency. He's not stepping down.
Right, but Kim's making the argument for him stepping down.
I'm making the argument that he should, if this is going to happen, if all this is going to play out, and she will eventually be the nominee, doesn't it make sense for her to be the incumbent? That way she goes into it having a few months as being president under her belt, and she goes in to the campaign as an incumbent president. Wouldn't that make sense?
Kim, but I do not think Joe Biden wants to be the second president in American history to resign his office.
I'm with brother Rothmann on this one. I think it may make sense to you, Kim, and it may make sense to others. And I mean, it's not nonsensical at all. It just feels as though it would create other problems. For example, all of a sudden the burden of governance, it's not always power of incumbency. It's the incumbency comes as an encumbrance as well. So now the issues of the world come to Kamala Harris while she's trying to play catch up in a game that she just got in. This race, hasn't really included her as top of ticket. I'm with Brother Rothmann on this. I really think you got to let.
You don't understand. Nobody can predict the future. I was in Wisconsin on March 31st, 1968. I had been with Richard Nixon that morning in Milwaukee. He was campaigning, he and his wife and David and Eisenhower and Julie and Tricia, they were all there. Who could have imagined that evening that Lyndon Johnson would withdraw as a candidate for president? So I can't read tea leaves. I can only tell you the reality. There is unrest within the Democratic Party. They understand the fallibility of Joe Biden. They understand that whatever happens, they have to run on his record for 3.5 years. The exemplar of that record is Kamala Harris. So she becomes the heir apparent. And it still gives Joe Biden not only a chance to continue as president for the remaining months of his term, but also he can be unleashed in the campaign, if he's up for it, to campaign actively for his vice president. And you will
I have two scenarios that I really want you to comment on. One is really fantastical, but I just love it as a scenario, and I wanted to get your thoughts. And it is this. If, and this again, this is not a situation with Joe Biden, but if there was a 25th Amendment intervention in the case of, again, let's forget about Joe Biden now. With now,
there won't be.
John, I know. Forget it. I'll ask another guest. I don't. You won't even let me get the narrative out. Let me ask you. This is from a viewer. Okay, this is from a viewer who has a question for you. Albert, get the goddamn question for him. Get me. Here it is. It's not for me. You answer the question. Jesus.
No, the 25th Amendment would not apply. It would require his cabinet to agree to vote him out. With the question
that would be interesting to me, it's an academic question, sir, is if he were removed, he still technically, even though he was removed as president, could continue to retain those delegates and run for president again, couldn't he?
Yeah, I just don't think it's realistic.
Okay.
His cabinet is not going to vote that he is not capable of running. Let me explain to you that Joe Biden, whatever we think his competence may be, still has full confidence, evidently, in his own ability. He would resist removal, and no one is moving for his removal. The 25th Amendment simply doesn't apply in this case.
Of course not. It was a hypothetical. Okay, so then what are the next steps, sir? What are they? What are we likely to see?
Joe Biden has to announce to the country whether or not he is going to run. If he says he's going to run, the Democratic Party has no choice. They will renominate him. And it's very clear from the response of key Democrats, they're not going to challenge that. If he releases his delegates, I believe he will endorse Kamala Harris, which means that the lead up to the Democratic convention would be to promote Kamala Harris. She then would have to make a choice about who her running mate would be. And believe me, if she is the nominee, she's going to stand on the stage at the Democratic convention and embrace Joe Biden and say, you want 4 more years of the Biden-Harris administration? You've got it. I'm the person. And I'll tell you, I've known Kamala Harris for years. The first radio talk show she ever appeared on was with me. I watched her as district attorney, as Attorney General, as the United States Senator. I would love to see her on the same stage with Donald Trump. I think she'd eviscerate him.
Well, of course you would, but I don't know that you're going to see that chance. I really don't.
If she's the nominee, you will.
Really? Do you think? I mean,
well, how are you going to avoid having a debate between the leading Democrat and the leading Republican? Donald Trump doesn't like to be accused of being a chicken. And by the way, the issue here, we're talking about Biden, we should be talking about Trump. His demeanor, the number of lies he told, more than 30 as we count them, and all of his legal problems, the fact that he could be president of the United States scares the living daylights out of me.
Of course.
And you may know that they're now going, some in the Republican Party are going after civil service and saying if you're a Biden partisan, you ought to be fired from the civil service. I have the whole packet of material here. It is, to me, absolutely shocking. And to be blunt, Donald Trump cannot go unchecked. And the Democratic Party, look, why did Joe Biden get into the race? He got into the race to stop Donald Trump from a second term. He succeeded. The argument I would make to him is don't stick around and allow Donald Trump to win the election. Pure and simple.
Well, it's a shame, and you make the point, I think, quite well, that his lies went completely unchecked. It was a fire hose, a fire hose of lies, and yet Joe Biden couldn't pick off one of them. It was embarrassing. I mean, some of the biggest, fattest lies that you could ever imagine, and Joe Biden couldn't pick off any of them.
He was not up to being president. And let me tell you, you cannot erase from the memory of the American people what we witnessed. And I will tell you, if he is the nominee, you can be absolutely certain that the Donald Trump commercials, which are going to run all over the country, will feature that Joe Biden. And so that's something we all have to really think about. I've always been a Biden partisan. I supported him for president each time he ran. He's always been very capable, but it's clear that he is not the Joe Biden that he was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. And he has to accept that reality.
The vice presidential pick on the Trump team is being put off because Trump's trying to sort of watch this show unfold.
He can't put it off too long. The convention convenes in just 2 weeks. And so Donald Trump will have to make a pick.
And he feels, apparently, some are saying that by putting it off, he can juice essentially ratings for the,
Yes, for the convention.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right, for his convention. So,
and remember, this is not unusual that normally presidential candidates, when they choose a vice president, historically, have waited until after their own formal nomination for president. By the way, there's one other quick thing. You understand that the Democratic convention is a problem because it's so late that in a state like Ohio, Biden, if he is renominated, has to be before the deadline, which is before the convention. So it would not surprise me if the Democratic National Committee has to make the decision of who they're supporting.
I know you love Kamala Harris, and I know that you were the first interview she did, but Delwood, I think, asked a good question because her name is mentioned prominently in these conversations. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, clearly a stronger candidate to defeat Trump. This is, again, his opinion. Do Democrats really want to win? Groupthink still in place to make a bad nomination. I don't think Kamala Harris is a bad nomination. I mean, based on polling, Rothmann even talks about it. The polling polls are even with Trump, but just give me a moment on Gretchen Whitmer for a second, if you would.
Gretchen Whitmer is very capable. Gavin Newsom is very capable. Jay Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, is very capable. There are a number of potential candidates on the Democratic side, but I'm being very pragmatic. When and if Joe Biden releases his delegates, there is no doubt in my mind that that machine, and it is a machine, will back Kamala Harris. They cannot repudiate the individual who has been vice president of the United States, and who, by the way, as I think Kim just pointed out, Kamala Harris is running even in the polls with Donald Trump. So there is no reason why she would not be the Democratic nominee for president.
Agolf is saying, shouldn't the most lies ever told in a presidential debate be a bigger story than the incumbent had jet lag and a cold? I think jet lag and a cold, though, does soft pedal it. I mean, John, when you get John Rothmann, who's a big Biden backer himself, saying, hey, look, the guy was, he was out on his feet. I mean, he really was. He couldn't even, his summation, I mean, when they give you your closing comments, you should have those nailed. I mean, that, you should be able to fly.
You remember Ronald Reagan in the first debate, with Walter Mondale? His presentation was a rambling presentation. His summation was terrible. And everybody in the Mondale campaign, and I knew some of the key people in the Mondale campaign, believed that they could beat Ronald Reagan. He came back in the second debate with that one line, I won't hold my opponent's youth and inexperience against him. And everybody laughed, including Walter Mondale. Look, Joe Biden has a chance to redeem himself, but it's not till after the convention. And I think the clock is ticking on Joe Biden now very carefully. It's not an easy thing to say. Look, nobody wants to admit their own mortality. No one wants to admit, and Joe Biden has a formidable record, whether you agree with him on issues or not. The only person who is part of that record who can stand on a platform and defend it is Kamala Harris. She is the vice president of the United States. And I would remind you that it is almost impossible to displace a vice presidential nominee. We saw it happen in 1944 when Franklin Roosevelt dumped Henry Wallace and took Harry Truman. And by the way, the dumping took place because the Democratic powers that be were worried about the health of Franklin Roosevelt and afraid of a Harry Truman presidency. And it happened again with Gerald Ford when the conservative wing of the Republican Party demanded that Nelson Rockefeller be removed. And Nelson Rockefeller was removed and was replaced with Bob Dole.
There's one candidate.
Vice president is a very tough thing to do.
One candidate that's not a vice president that shellacks Donald Trump, according to the Reuters Ipsos poll, Michelle Obama, author, attorney, and wife of former President Barack Obama, has a double-digit lead over Trump, 50% to 39%. Again, though, she's not going to run, so these are sort of fantastical various...
yeah, and by the way, earlier when you and I were disputing on the 25th Amendment, it's not really a dispute. I just understand the pragmatic situation. Michelle Obama is an unknown quantity in terms of her current political stance. And of course, that is an asset in many ways. But I don't see her as a practical consideration.
Yeah, of course, I think that's indisputable.
That's probably a major media call, but I'm putting it off because there's only one major media personality I want to talk to, and that's Mark.
Thank you, my friend. It's a delight to have you in our mix always. This seems like a moment that really requires a presidential historian and someone who is an expert, and you are that guy.
I know you have to wrap this up, but I just want to say a word about Donald Trump. I believe it to be a national imperative that Donald Trump not become president of the United States again. And everything that can be done to make sure that Donald Trump does not sit in the White House has to be done. That should be Joe Biden's primary consideration, and that should be the Democratic Party's primary consideration as they proceed. The prevention of Donald Trump from ever being president again, in the words of Liz Cheney, in the words of other key Republicans who oppose him, is the absolute imperative.
Well, the poisoning of the Supreme Court that has happened, he's really
we haven't even talked about the Supreme Court case.
And the poisoning is, because if you would just shut up for a second, I could get to the Supreme Court, but you're always talking. I can't believe you, John Rothmann. That's me calling on the other line saying, quiet, let me get a word in edgewise.
Can I say a word about the Supreme Court?
Oh, my God. What's our situation, Albert? Don't I have Carol waiting?
She is in the green room. We got to wrap up here.
I got to wrap. I'm sorry. Right. I love you. Listen, you got to, you're a talk show host. Plan your time out better next time. All right.
You started me late, Mark. It's all your
right.
fault.
That is true, to be fair to you. But I also, and I'm finishing you late. John Rothmann podcast is Around the World, Political World with John Rothmann. He really will share thoughts about the Supreme Court there and then back here again next week. Again, it's Around the Political World. We love you, John. John Rothmann, everybody. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The only reason I was pushing the 25th Amendment thing is because it was from a viewer. I just thought it was an interesting hypothetical. Anyway, yeah.
I love it when you're angry.
All right. Albert, what do I need to do right now with
we can do a little
show?
Short sweeper, and then we got Carol here. In the
I love it. Smash the like button like a boss, and we'll continue with a super interesting palate cleanser. 2-time Academy Award, a Golden Globe winning, 5-time Emmy and Grammy nominated songwriter Carol Connors, her new book, Elvis, Rocky, and Me, and she will join us next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels good.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
I'm telling you, it's not easy every day. Sometimes it's an embarrassment of riches. You know what I mean?
This is no summer camp.
That's right. It isn't. So excited to have a little palate cleanser for you before I get back to some politics and stuff going on with the environment and the world. And this is remarkably, I say remarkably because you never think you're going to meet, as you all are going to meet, someone who wrote such an iconic song as Gonna Fly Now from the movie Rocky. But you are going to. AFI called that song one of the most important movie songs of all time. She's written a bunch of other stuff and 2 Academy Awards, 2 Golden Globes, 5 Emmys, a Grammy nomination, 1 nomination shy from an EGOT nomination in her career. She's written a new book, and that's why she's here. Elvis, Rocky, and Me is the name of the book. The Carol Connors Story. Here's Carol Connors. Hi, Carol. Thank you for your patience. I can't hear you. Oh, there she is. Okay, good. Look at you all.
Happy July 4th coming up.
Leah, happy July 4th to you. She's got that mute thing going where if I talk, I'll mute a little bit of the beginning of what she says. So I'll try to be strategic about how I ask a question. So I may lay out a little bit and let you just answer. Tell me, first of all, about you. So Elvis, Rocky, and Me. I mean, I guess, can I just start with the Rocky part and then I'll double back to the Elvis part because I'm really curious. Your book then discusses how that song, Gonna Fly Now, I mean, that was almost one of those transcendent numbers that really had to have changed your life the way it changed that future trajectory of that film. I mean, that film's soundtrack is one of the defining aspects of the movie, which was an Oscar-winning motion picture. Go ahead. Tell me about that film and you. I know I don't hear her at all, Albert. What's going on? I don't hear her at all. What's happening? Stop.
Yeah.
Okay. Can she? No? We'll try to get her.
Mic's not muted. Tell him the mic is not
There
muted.
it is. It's not muted. Now I hear her. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'm not the only writer on Rocky, on the theme for Rocky, Gonna Fly Now. Bill Conti, who I think is one of the geniuses of all movie music in the world ever. And it's a great story how I came up with Gonna Fly Now. That we had watched the film and it was a rough cut. There was Stallone, Sasha, Irwin Winkler, Robert Chardoff, everyone, Sly, blah, 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 blah. We're sitting there and then the film is over. It's a rough cut. And we all come to my home and then they all leave, and Bill Conti had sat at my piano and gone, ba, 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 ba. And I thought, what is anybody going to write to that? And I went into the shower. In those days, you could take your phone into the shower. So remember, it wasn't a cell phone. So the bottom line is, all of a sudden, I'm in my mind, I can see the film. I can see him hitting the meat, drinking the yolks, running down the street, climbing the stairs, putting his arms up, and John Avildsen, the genius director, putting him in slow motion. And I thought, oh my God, I know what this film is about. I know what life's about. I know what the song's about. So I called Bill Conti and I said, Bill, I told him all that. And he said, Carol, where are you? And I said, I'm in the shower. He said, are you by yourself? And I went, Bill, I'm a Scorpio. If I was with somebody, I would not be calling you. Yes, I'm by myself. And he said, give me the line before you electrocute yourself. And the line was, gonna fly now, because at that moment, he could do anything any of us could ever want to do in our lives. He could go the distance, he could win, and when he put his arms up, he could even fly. And that's how I was born.
It's all communicated in the lyric and in the music. You're absolutely right. It's almost a restorative kind of inspirational, clearly jubilant theme. Tell me then how that changed your life.
Well, before Rocky, because I had To Know Him Is to Love Him, to know him is to love him. Phil Spector wrote that for my voice. I was 16 and a half. It's the reason So became my first boyfriend, as you're going to ask me in a minute. And so it was like, I was sort of well known a little, but I can judge it by the Polo Lounge in the Beverly Hills Hotel. Before Rocky, I was just Carol. The day that Rocky got nominated for the Oscar, we got nominated. Overnight, Mark, I became Miss Connors. Does that say it all?
I would think nothing less. Absolutely. It is a life-changing and career-changing moment. Absolutely right. Now, you then were single through a lot of this rise through show business because you had relationships with a lot of very well-known people.
I have always been single. I like to think of myself as the femme fatale of the music industry. But I have had wonderful loves of my life, from David Jansen to Robert I Spy Culp. I was so single-minded. I had such laser beam concentration on wanting to write music. One of the songs that influenced me the most was when I was a kid, was the song from High Noon, Frankie Lane, Don't Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. All I wanted to do was write for music and film. And I felt that I had to have laser beam clarity. And even Diane Warren, who's one of my dearest friends, said, Carol, you're like a trailblazer. And I went, Diane, she's the GOAT. I said, Diane, I was just doing what I felt I should be doing. I never gave it any other thoughts. That it was always music. It was my first love. Well, not my love.
The song To Know Him Is to Love Him, that was the song that brought you together with Elvis Presley?
Yes. What happened was, according to, can I show the book?
Of course, please do. We should have a copy of do we have a cover, Albert, to show anybody? Or maybe not. Yeah, please, you can, normally we have a cover or some kind of asset to present. Sorry about that. We'll have a link to the book in the...
See the back?
Yeah.
I don't know, but there are two boys and myself.
All right.
Marshall Lieb, the infamous Phil Spector, and me. And then that's me today. Phil heard me sing and fell in love with my voice. I was 16 and a half. He was dating my girlfriend. And while they were smooching or necking or petting or whatever they were doing, I was twiddling my thumbs, which I still do, and singing. And one day Phil said, I'm going to write a song for your voice. And I went, right, sure, of course. And he did. And it was To Know Him Is to Love Him. He played it for me on the telephone. To no. That's how he sounded. And the bottom line is, we went into the studio, never knowing it would do what it did. 2 takes, 1 for balance, 2-track machine. And I sang it all the way through, not one splice in the entire song.
Wow.
Elvis Presley loved that song. In 1958, he went into the Army, if you remember. He of course, met Priscilla. He thought that Priscilla and I resembled each other. And actually, there's a couple pictures of us where we did. And he said to his Memphis Mafia, he always said, I want to meet that girl. I really like that girl's voice. And this guy came up to me in a market and said, aren't you the girl that sang To Know Him Is to Love Him? And I went, yes. And he said, Elvis would love to meet you. He loves that song. And I thought to myself, yeah, right, sure, of course. But I was my father's daughter. My dad was a jockey. not a disc jockey, a jockey. And the bottom line is, lived on the edge, and I was my father's daughter. I gave him my phone number. I didn't even know if he was a serial killer. But the bottom line is, he called me 2 weeks later, went to Elvis's house where he was renting. He had just finished doing Viva Las Vegas with Anne Margaret. And he was on the other side of the room. He was just gorgeous. And he walked like a cat. And I love cats. And he walked towards me. And the first words out of Elvis's mouth to me were, so why'd you name group Teddy Bears? And I didn't know what to say. And the Memphis Mafia were standing there. And I went, just want to be your teddy bear. And that started our love affair.
That's just terrific. How long were you guys, were you seeing him, or kind of romantically seeing him? How did that work out?
Over 9 months.
Wow, that's a long time. In Elvis time, that's really long time. Yeah.
And I didn't have a baby. I was so stupid. Every woman will understand what I'm saying right now. He was my very first love, my very first boyfriend.
Well, I think he was the fantasy boyfriend for so many women at the time, girls at the time, but you actually were with him. My time is so limited. I want to mention again, though, and we'll mention the book, and we again, Elvis, Rocky, and Me. But it wasn't just "Gonna Fly Now," and it wasn't just some of those songs that you had hatched during that period. There was a huge hit for you, I believe, with Billy Preston and Sarita, with "You I'm Born Again." That you also were involved in that, were you not? Didn't you write that?
Yes, I co-wrote that, and I wrote it for my love affair with Robert Culp. I wanted it. Doesn't Taylor Swift do that all the time?
Yeah, yes.
I wanted I wanted him to feel that way about me, and me him, and we did. And he was very patriotic. I have to show you something. You're going to love this. Check out these boots. From my head to my toes, I sang the national anthem many, many times for presidents and football games. The bottom line is, I wear these boots and this outfit. I love our country. I love our country. It is the greatest country in the world. My mother came from Poland and got out, and I just love it. And I know you're short on time, but can I throw down a gauntlet to somebody?
Please.
Jennifer Coolidge. She thinks she's the dolphin call lady. I'm the original. Just ask Victoria Beckham. And the bottom line, I will challenge her anywhere. Didn't somebody just say that? Anywhere, anytime, any place. So what I'm challenging Jennifer Coolidge.
Wow.
To a football contest.
You just missed her. She was just here, so I'm sorry. We didn't coordinate that very well. I'll also mention that you've written and performed on songs for Disney's Oscar-nominated animated feature, The Rescuers. You wrote the majority of the lyrics and the music for that film. I mean, you're so prolific, Carol. I've got to tell you, I feel a bit cheated, and I'm so sorry. I had a choice not to, because I knew we were going to be crowded today, not to speak with you at all, but I really wanted the audience to have a chance to meet you. I had a choice between not being able to speak with you at all because of the crowded nature, or at least being able to meet you, even though it's a kind of speed dating that we're doing on this one. So I would love to have a longer conversation with you. And I do want to mention that in Los Angeles on Monday, July 15th, you and some of your showbiz friends will be at a book signing at Book Soup. Isn't that right?
And the author with me, which is Stephen Bergsman, and myself will be there. And there's a surprise that I'm doing. It's not the dolphin call, but it is a surprise. And Talia's going to be there. Frank Stallone is coming. Papoose.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Oh, please.
Yeah. Well, go then to Book Soup. It's again on the 15th, which is Monday, coming up soon. And that's in Los Angeles. And all of our Los Angeles listeners and viewers, check her out. It's a public event. And boy, the response to your book has been terrific. And I congratulate you on it. And again, as I say, it was such a pleasure to meet you. There it is, the book signing at Book Soup in LA at 7 p.m. on Monday evening right there at Book Soup, which is a legendary place in Los Angeles. And she'll be there, Carol, with her legendary friends. And pick up a copy of that Elvis, Rocky and Me. Carol Connors.
And there's also a documentary coming out. We're in post-production, and it's going to be released a little bit later on. And,
that's terrific. You know, I'm loving these music documentaries, and your story may be one of the more interesting ones that I could see them doing a documentary around. Honest to God, come back again when they wrap they finally finish the post-production, and we'll have a longer conversation, and I can't wait to see clips from that movie.
Thank you so much. Okay, can I do it now?
Yes, you're going to do a dolphin call? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, remember, Jennifer Coolidge.
Jennifer, please, go ahead.
Here goes. I have to think dolphin. Even Barbie Benton, my best friend, keeps trying to imitate me, but she can't. Even the dolphins are wishing us all the happiest July 4th. And
that's a scary skill you have. Yes, a scary skill.
Thank you. Dolphins go like that.
All right, Carol, we love you, and good luck on the book, Elvis, Rocky, and Me. There'll be a link to buying the book. There is the cover. Yeah, Elvis, Rocky, and Me. And that's, by the way, that car you're up against, that was a huge, popular vehicle at the time, wasn't it?
That's my car. I'm the only girl in the history of rock and roll that wrote a hot rod song called Spring Little Cobra Getting Ready to Strike. And it became one of the biggest hits. And Carol Shelby gave me that car and took me to Le Mans. Ooh la
wow.
La.
Great story. Great story.
Number 2544.
Man, again, I want you to come back. We'll have a longer conversation. I also want to ask you about David Jansen and Robert Culp and some of these other people who, really informed some of my childhood. So I can't wait till our next conversation. But in the meantime, pick up the book and, again, visit with Carol, 7 o'clock, Book Soup in Los Angeles on the 15th, which is the Monday, July 15th. Thanks, Carol. Carol Connors, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye, love. Happy 4th of July. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I believe, yes, I noticed that too. Her best friend is Barbie Benton. My God. I loved her also. God, who are they? I'm meeting all these people whose Trevor Starr in Hollywood said her best friend is Barbie Benton. And some people, younger boys and girls, that won't mean anything. The older boys and girls, that means something.
No idea, Mark. I have no idea.
I know, but
she was on Love Boat all the time and all those like Fantasy Island, wasn't she? Barbie Benton.
She was. Barbie Benton was the girlfriend of Hugh Hefner, and so that'll give you some sense. She was a Playboy playmate and actress, and kind of, you're right. She was that kind of actress, though, the one that would show up on
Google it, cameos, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, she was great. I love her energy, man. I got to get that energy back. I get completely healthy. Yeah, Playboy Bunny Barbie, exactly, Julie. Carol is so fabulous. Yeah, that's right. There she is. Yeah, you see how you could kind of fall in love with her, Albert? Can you see that?
I'm seeing it now.
All right, Hefner's honey, exactly. That's wild, and to think that that's going to be quite an event in Los Angeles. I don't know how many of you are in Los Angeles, and most of our audience is Bay Area, I think, and then across the country. But there's a chunk in Southern California, and that might be quite a party. That's again on the 15th at Book Soup in Los Angeles. But she's the real thing, and I'm so sincere when I say I'd love to talk to her more and have her back when that documentary drops. So. All right. Now, what do I need to get caught up on here, Albert? Is there anything, or Kim, please help me. What have I left out?
I have an update for our poll as well.
Okay. Tell everybody what the poll is again, please. We're polling when Joe Biden will drop out of the race or whether he'll drop out of the race.
And that's correct. And 63% believe he won't drop out.
Wow.
Which is, yeah.
That's extraordinary. So we have specific days, I believe, this weekend, Monday, Tuesday, or not at all. And not at all leads.
Second is Over the Weekend, which is at 19%, which is not the highest, but it's pretty significant compared to the 3 and 4 options.
Wow. I think two things can be true here, and I think there really is some truth to an earlier comment that I saw, which was this is a media narrative. Mm-hmm. I think it's the truth that the media is running with this narrative. As I told you, it's kind of sexy copy, but I also think, or clickbaity to use the more contemporary reference, it's kind of clickbait, but I also think that there is truth to it because we all saw it. So this isn't rumor now anymore. Kim gave you, I thought, a really nice little chunk at the beginning of her newscast. The New York Times piece, which seemed well-sourced, had multiple instances of Joe Biden having more of those Thursday night debate moments than the White House would let on. And that is where I become incensed, because I think we as voters had a right to know that. I also think that there should have been a primary, as I told you. I made that point earlier, and I reiterate it. I don't like, and the Democrats are very much about this, and Republicans too, to a degree, but even in the case of the Republicans this year, they allowed Nikki Haley to primary Donald Trump, right? And the Democrats really crushed any attempt to primary Donald Trump. Now, they did primary him. You'll remember, was it Doug? I just spaced him. Marianne Williamson, obviously, and then there was one other who was in the race. Who was it, Kim?
Were you talking about Doug Burgum? I don't know who you're talking about.
No, not Burgum. Burgum is, talked about...
Vice President for the Trump, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember. I'm so sorry. I just I've spaced it. But you can. My point is,
Google
there was almost it's almost immaterial. They were not permitted in any kind of relevant, real way to participate in primarying on the Democratic side Joe Biden, and as a result, there was no real effort to fire test Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. So we. And myself because we're so afraid of the alternative, we all were carrying the water for Joe Biden. And it's shameful what's happened. So...
Well, I don't know if you saw the poll. There's a recent poll that was done. It's a Yahoo News YouGov survey. And the results show that more than half of Americans asked in this new survey say President Biden is not fit to serve another term in the Oval. They say 60% of respondents said President Biden is unfit for another term. Just 24% said he is fit. 16% said they're unsure. Meanwhile, 46% said Donald Trump isn't fit for a second term either. The results come, again, a week after the poor debate performance where President Biden was stumbling over words and appearing to lose his train of thought. But despite that, today, big presser at the White House, where the spokesperson for President Biden, Karine Jean-Pierre, says he is not stepping down. He's not going to do it. So she took a lot of questions from reporters about the president's mental fitness, and she said that he has not had a medical exam since his annual physical in February, which I don't think is too far back. But she said the president suffered from jet lag and a cold. They're sticking with that. And she says, yeah, he's not. There's no plans for him to step down.
Well, to be fair to the White House spokesperson, always, that's what she's supposed to say.
Sure.
I mean, she's really, you're never going to get anything from that hymnal that isn't just, well, it was jet lag, it was a cold, it was the antihistamine, it was anything. As I mentioned to you before, I mean, I think the schedule would challenge even the fittest 40-year-old, the kind of international travel that he was doing. But he had been back in the country almost 2 weeks at the time. Thank you, Franco. Big shout out for a $20 super chat. Mark, you and the team are great. Keep it up. Thank you so much. Thank you. Or as they say, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, though. Very much appreciate the support. And Trevor Starr in Hollywood says John Rothmann should step down as... And Alex Michelson, Alex can become commander-in-chief. Well, that's a thank you for the
big shout out.
Big shout out to Trevor. We love our John Rothmann, so I don't think anything's happening there. Civil service under, sorry, let me just see what that says. Civil service under Project 2025. Yeah, civil service equals SS. Yeah, it is. It's a loyalty test that essentially everyone will be put through. And you may remember in the early days of the Trump administration the first time, remember that cabinet official meeting where the press was invited in at the very beginning, and essentially he went around the table and everybody had to talk about how lucky they were to be working with him and how impressive they were. Remember? Do you recall it?
Yeah,
It was extraordinary.
That's what happens after every show. I, make sure that you know that I'm lucky to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was really like the kind of thing you'd see from Kim Jong-un.
Wow.
I mean, really. I mean, it was. Everybody go around and talk about the supreme leader and how lucky they are to be serving in the cabinet and how amazing the supreme leader is. I mean, and then he wanted that military parade because he'd seen it in other countries.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, people forget. But that's not to mention that he's openly corrupt.
He wanted the tanks to roll through Washington, D.C.
Yeah, they did. And they did a lot of damage to the streets. And, of course, that was never reimbursed, even though there were promises. I mean, it's just a... Look, this is a guy in Donald Trump who really wanted to play golf, and he wanted to collect the respect that is associated with being president of the United States, and also he wanted to collect the money that could be collected under the table. And now, through the hotel, through the resorts, et cetera, there are many ways to funnel Trump money into the Trump organization. Now that is done, and it's actually going to be much, much easier to curry favor with the former president, who is now, it would appear, on final approach to become the president again. And the Supreme Court has cleared the way for him to just stuff every kind of bribe into his pocket through any means, official and unofficial. It'll all be under the umbrella of officialdom, because now they will protect that unitary executive, that top executive, at every turn. This is clearly a group of people in the Supreme Court, the conservative majority, as they're called, that is just there to protect Donald Trump and essentially ensconce him in the White House as the leader of the United States of America forever. It won't be always Donald Trump. The next guy, maybe it'll be Eric, or it'll be Ivanka, or it'll be some version. But it'll be hand-picked placement of such a person. So Joe Biden may not step down. According to our audience, he won't step down. I'm seeing more and more in the chat. Why would he step down? Beth Farmer asked when I say he wasn't fire tested. Are you kidding? Hasn't Biden gone through 4 years of fire testing already? Well, he's been tested as president, and I've just told you repeatedly that I think he's got a track record that he can stand on and be proud of. But when it comes time to defend that record or attack the fire hose of lies coming from the other side, he is not there. He's DOA, man, or MIA. You pick your initials. He's not there. And so when I say fire tested, I'm talking about fire tested through a primary to see what the states that you go primary to primary with actually want, to see what the American people want. That's what I mean when I say fire tested. I mean, say what you want about Donald Trump. Nikki Haley took him on primary after primary. He wasn't afraid of her. Now, the Republican Party is a much different thing. It's a different animal, and he's an intimidating bully of a guy. So I'm not suggesting that he was, all for fair play. Essentially, he was saying, if you vote for Nikki Haley and you support Nikki Haley, if you endorse Nikki Haley, you are done with me. He was saying that to many of those who were functionaries in the Republican Party. So I don't want to in any way suggest that I thought that Trump was fair-handed or fair-minded about it. But I'm just saying there's a fire testing that does go through the primary process that, let's face it, Biden didn't have to deal with, and he just kind of cruised through. Anyway, I'm just looking for, again, comments quickly. Joe Bader Bidensburg is killing me. Jet lag doesn't equal word salad cognitive deficiency. Thank you, Louise.
Big shout out.
I agree. I mean, I think it's insulting to say, you know, really, Mark, you're going to make a big deal out of the fact that he had a cold and was jet lagged? Yeah. I'll say it again. I said it in the first hour. A staff that would schedule that event for that man, if you know that's the performance you're going to get, I don't know, 2 out of 3 times, 1 out of 3 times. If I said to you 1 out of 3 times, let's say it's 1 out of 4 times, Joe Biden, who is the last chance to put off an authoritarian regime waiting to transform America from a democratic republic to absolute despotism. If I told you 1 out of 4 times, he's going to show up on that debate stage and he's kind of going to be vacant. He's not really going to be able to respond to much. He's going to be incoherent some of the time. That's not good.
No.
25% of the time?
They should have said, I'm sorry, President Biden is not going to appear anywhere near Donald Trump because Donald Trump lies. There is no reason for a debate because it's not a debate of the real issues. They could have said anything else, although that would have been more sweeping this issue under the rug.
Right, exactly. I mean, that would be more lying, but yeah, I get it. It would be better than watching him flail the way he did. It was pathetic. It was awful. It was sad. I mean, if it had been a fight, they would have stopped it in the 3rd round if it had gone that far. No one is pushing me out, Biden tells campaign staff on a call. Again, I'll say this. This is why this is really a faceted and fascinating thing going on. On a call with your campaign staff, you have to say that. You cannot say on a campaign call with your staff who are hearing relentlessly, I hear he's dropping out. There's a lot of pressure for him to drop out. Is he dropping out? I hear he's in bad shape. You must reconstitute their enthusiasm. So you have to say, I'm not being pushed out. Do not worry. Let's do the heavy work of building a future for America and staving off authoritarianism. You must say that. So on a call, of course he's going to say that. Mm-hmm. It's exactly what I was saying to you about Jean-Pierre. What's her first name?
Corinne. She's the mouthpiece. She has to say it.
Yeah, she has to say it. I mean, you're going to get predictable responses. Yeah. What do you think? You know, the 6th time you ask, you know, isn't the president beginning to suffer from mental acuity issues? You know what? You're right. He is. I can only stand here and say no so long. I mean, it's crazy. So these are situations in which you're not going to get the real word. I think there is some decent reporting being done, and we're starting to get those stories out that many close to the president are beginning to reflect some cracks in the solidarity around Joe Biden. That, I think, is important to know. So, do I have time for a quick headlines? And I'd love to just get quick headlines and then Belinda. Oh, Belinda's standing by, isn't she? Sorry.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do maybe like a sweeper one more time, a longer-ish sweeper, and then we'll get the Belinda here.
So here's the situation. We have a poll where you can help us predict when Biden will drop out of the race, assuming he's going to do it soon. That would be by the weekend, over the weekend, I think Monday, or not at all. That's up right now in the live chat. But if you're listening, as most do, after the fact, or watching after the fact, go to our community section and participate in that poll, and that poll will be up for days. So, and Cheryl, you're right about this. Seriously, how impressive was Trump? The debate Trump was just as much of a disaster in his own way. I completely agree. In fact, that was my point to John Rothmann. It was easy pickings.
Yeah.
Donald Trump was horrible. He was ill-prepared, just full of bluster and BS. Everything was complete garbage. It would have been so easy to pick it off. Truly. That's why it made Biden's performance even worse, because Trump was so bad. They're both, to me, horribly flawed people, but clearly Trump is a toxic poison on America. Please don't misunderstand me. I don't put them, the flaws in the same universe. thank you for being here. Smash the like button.
Your iron rod.
You will love Belinda Waymouth, as you do already, and we will get to her next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Put that coffee down.
I come from regular stock.
Oh, girl, baby girl. Don't even
There's a
play.
reason that this place is fun. Don't ever use that word.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
What you say is the political dogma that they're trying to shove down our throats.
Straight up right in, no problem.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Good day, sir. Cuatro años más.
I don't wear a mask for the same reason I don't wear underwear. Things gotta breathe.
Say what?
Do you have a secret talent?
You get nothing.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
All the time. Bye-bye.
Did you really just do that?
What up, everybody? Thank you for all the love. A lot of you have really ridden to our support, and I appreciate it. I will give you personal shouts along the way here. Wes is one of them. Big shout out to Wes. Always with us. I think virtually every day he makes a contribution. He's kind of in the Gail Guthrie style of support.
Big shout out.
That every day I'm with you, So thank you, Wes. I really do appreciate it, and I do note it. And before I get to Belinda, I also want to note that we are a Patreon and PayPal-fueled show. The way we stay on the air is it's kind of like a PBS model. So under the videos that we put up and under this show, there's a link to Patreon and PayPal. And if you click that link, you can be one of our Patreon and PayPal community. And we put your name at the end of every show because you make every show happen. So thank you. There's a new Patreon member, and I want to give Tammy a big shout out.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Tammy. Thank you for joining our Patreon community. And it's not only Tammy. There is also Charles Floyd with a big shout out.
Big shout out.
And I appreciate you, Charles, for being part of our Patreon community. So I know many of you step up in all the ways that you can, and financially is really the way that honestly sustains us, because at the end of every month, we got to make payroll. So thank you, thank you, thank you. One of the things that we do on this show, and I don't see a lot of it with other shows, is we regularly check in on the planet Earth and on news of the environment, environmental policy worldwide. We call the segment, It's the Planet, Stupid.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid. No. It's the planet stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid, eco-journalist Belinda Waymouth. Hi, Belinda.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm all right. Talk to me. What is happening in this complex world? I love by the way, I have to tell everybody. So Belinda sends me an email going, I forget, I wish I could find the exact email. It was something like, Mark, I'm just, I hope I'm sure you've heard that Joe Biden is considering dropping out. No, my God, really?
I like to help about, Mark? I'm not just concerned about the environment.
You're
about a lot of things. I live here.
It was the best. It was like, am I under a rock? I mean, my God, that's what we do here. Yeah. But it was very funny. You were just so sweet. It was like just the first line, and then you went on to the stuff that you wanted to get to, but it was really, really funny.
I'm glad you liked it. It was for your amusement. Come on.
Okay. All right. Belinda, tell me what's happening in this great place called Earth. There is good news and bad.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the bad, because there's definitely lots of bad. I mean, these court decisions are insane. We got the Supreme Court overturning the Chevron deference. And this means that, rather than having experts and governmental regulatory bodies, people really, who understand what's going on, interpreting what can be unclear laws when it comes to the environment and to industry and all of these things, guess what? Now it's not going to be left. The experts now are going to be partisan judges. They're going to interpret these unclear laws. And because
and more than even partisanship, they just aren't experts in the field. And a lot of the stuff you really need to be a scientist to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, this absolute campaign that we've had from conservatives, the appointment of all these judges during the Trump administration is now, paying off. And so you've got, commerce departments and corporations, the thing that just happened with the federal judge on Monday, saying that Louisiana and 15 other states who were saying, hey, we've got lots of, natural gas and we want these export ports, built all along the, coastline of Texas and Louisiana, where poor people live. And here's the thing, Mark, the exports of liquefied natural gas, they have already doubled in the last 4 years because of all the additional exporting hubs facilities that there are there. And the Biden administration just put on hold, I think it's between 8 and 12 new ones. But with the ones that are already being built, the liquefied natural gas exports are already slated to double again in the next 4 years. So, this business as usual thing, the thing that I also wrote to you in the email along with the breaking news was that, I think what conservatives and Republicans are really showing us is that, whether they know that climate change is real or not, or they just absolutely have the blinkers on, they really don't care about the well-being of their constituents. That's what they're showing with thwarting these laws and these environmental protections, overturning the Chevron deference, which means that there'll be, it puts in jeopardy climate change policies, which, Biden, however we feel after his performance last Thursday night, he has really done more than any other president so far for climate change. The toxic, the regulation of toxic chemicals, the making sure that we have as little pollution as possible in the air and the water. Overturning the Clean Neighbors Act, that you can't have a coal-fired power plant here when the prevailing winds are going to send it to the neighboring state and you're going to give them pulmonary disease and their children asthma, And
again, these are all things that were overturned by this Supreme Court decision. Exactly.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. So I do have to give our president a shout out for what he announced yesterday. May I do that?
Of course.
So yesterday, he announced that OSHA and his administration are going to put in place rules to protect workers from heat. And this is hugely, hugely important. We've got these heat waves hitting us right now. We've got Hurricane Beryl, doing incredible damage. And this is just the beginning, of the hurricane season. We've got, the worst hurricane season slated. And when you look at the numbers of people that they talk about who are dying from heat-related deaths, it's, this is the biggest fatality impact of climate change, heat-related deaths. The LA Times just released research. So it was estimated in a 10-year period, they said, in California, 600 people had died of heat. And the LA Times researched those numbers and said, actually, it's 6 times that amount. It's 3,900 people who died of heat. It was a 10-year period. I can't remember the exact dates. But, we've got in the last, I think it was from 2012 to 2022, they're saying, 2,300 people died from heat-related deaths nationwide. And it's really important for these guys, for the workers. And this is why it's going to be, through OSHA, it's going to protect 36 million Americans who work in places where heat is an issue. I just think this is, not only is it the right thing to do, it's so important to, to bring attention to it. So right now, and the great thing is if these, if this rule gets finalized, and it would mean that employers have to really be educated in what, heat-related stress looks like. They'd have to have proper water and cooling facilities for their workers so they could quickly get them into a cooling facility if they were showing signs of heat distress. Young new workers would be trained to sort of be able to recognize if they started feeling heat stress. And okay, the thing I was thinking about earlier was we all get so up in arms about sweatshops in other countries. Well, we've got sweatshops here with these workers, and there was this horrible case last year. I don't know if anyone of our listeners or if you guys read about it. It was a worker in Texas, and he was suffering from heat distress, and his employers thought that his erratic and weird behavior was drug-induced, that he was high. And so they kept him working until he died. And so these rules are so important, particularly, with what's happening. And we have them, so we have them in various states. We have them in Washington, Oregon, California, Minnesota, and one other state. But two of our hottest states, Florida and Texas, the governors there, Abbott and DeSantis, have ruled against local governments being able to have any kind of requirements to protect workers. They ruled against it in two of the hottest states. And again, that just, it's like, it's just this flagrant denial of what's happening, and also just flagrant, disregard for people's health and their lives. And that's what all these court decisions, when it's okay to pollute, it's okay not to protect your workers. It's, we don't need climate policies.
Well, it's all about money, of course, and because I'm seeing in the chat, why would anyone be against protecting workers from life-threatening heat? I don't get it. Well, it's all about money, because if you have to build a cooling station, if you have to take a worker off the line, et cetera, that is a productivity. I mean, I'm very much into animals, and I look at a lot of animal welfare situations, and when they truck these pigs and other livestock across multiple states, across multiple days, there's no water, there's no food and all of that. They just, and then a bunch of them die in these overwhelming, but you say, well, how are they possible that that happened? It's just money to them. They just, well, we just know that 25% of the creatures on board that truck will die from heat and exhaustion and dehydration, but the 75% will make it. So, and that's the way they look at these workers. They will look at them the exact same way. I mean, as just animals in a truck being trucked to slaughter. I'm sorry to put it in those terms, but to me, the evidence is just so very stark, and and this is the human toll. I'm so glad you point to the human toll of climate change and the climate crisis.
Yeah. No, I think we do have to, call it out for what it is, because it's so inhumane. What we're doing to our fellow, human beings and to animals. I mean, it's just, it's awful. I mean, there was a thing I was reading the other day talking about real estate and how you're really going to have to think about where you buy a home vis-a-vis climate change. And one of the things they're saying is that in the next 3 decades, 100 million Americans are going to live in what they're called extreme heat belts. And in an extreme heat belt, you're going to get at least one day a year when the heat index hits 125 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, that's 100 million Americans. It's insane. So, whatever we think of Biden, the fact that he announced this yesterday, these rulings to help American workers, I just have to applaud him for it. And I hope that he doggedly, no matter, how long he's going to, if it's just going to be this term, if he is our president going forward, that, he is doggedly trying to do something to protect American workers, and it's so important. And it's in such stark contrast with what we get on the other side, which is just this incredible disregard. And I'm just going to keep calling it out because I find it egregious and terrible.
I love that you pointed out, and I also want to underscore that I'm very much about the Biden record. That's why when Kim and I were discussing, I think last hour, the matter of the presidency, that's not what we're talking about. The presidency and campaigning are two different things. Communicating a message and trying to stave off this authoritarian who is waiting in the wings, that's a different skill set, if you want to think of it that way, than actually administering the country. What you're suggesting is he's actually administering the country in all these aggressive, breakthrough, fabulous ways that protect workers and protect real estate and protect all the things that deserve protection and are cognizant of so many aspects of a changing environment. But sadly, it coexists with this guy who, unfortunately, by age, addled by, those things that get to all of us, he just isn't as vital, it doesn't seem, in some of the ways to try to, again, to be the TV star that he needs to be, to stave off a little bit of the onslaught of Trump. But I love the policy is just remarkable. It's transformational.
Yeah. No, it's really important, and to really call out that climate change last year cost the US $90 billion. The damages from it. I mean, this is no joke. $90 billion is no joke. So shall we move on and talk about something positive and fabulous that's happening? And it's in the corporate world, which I really love to be able to talk about a positive thing in the corporate world.
Please.
Okay. So NOAA, our National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, along with marine sanctuary groups, nonprofit groups, air quality boards, came up with this idea in 2014 that they were going to do an award. They were going to have an awards show for shipping companies that would slow down those huge cargo ships that we see, going up and down our coasts. And what we have to realize is that 90% of consumer goods are transported around the world in cargo ships. And we know that, the cargo ship traffic, has increased sort of exponentially as, we rely on, all these imported goods. And that these ships are horrible for marine life, particularly big marine life, are whales. And so what NOAA and these other groups came up with this idea, and I have to read out the name of what it's called because I love the name. So it's called Protecting Blue Whales and Blue Skies, because what they're getting these container ships to do is to voluntarily slow down when they're passing through really important, marine areas. So areas where you've got migrating whales, where you've got birthing whales. And the thing about whales right now is because of climate change and heating ocean, their food supply is closer to coastlines, which means they're more in danger of having collisions with these cargo ships. Well, what's happened is, so first of all, if they slow down from 18 or 14 knots an hour to 10 knots an hour, they were being given a monetary incentives to do that. But now they have these, and I love that that's the picture, because they have a whale tail shaped trophy that they win if you're at sapphire level. And sapphire level is for a ship that slows down for 85% of its journey through a protected area, which drops the collision possibility with whales by 58%. It reduces their carbon and air pollution, and then also the noise that these boats are creating that marine animals have to contend with. So this thing has been this huge success because these shipping companies are loving it. They love getting the awards. Their bosses love them getting the awards. They check them. There's one Japanese company that of the last 4 years has got a Sapphire Award, 3 times. They dropped the monetary incentive because these companies don't need the monetary incentive. They don't need $2,500 to slow down. But that trophy, it's like the Oscars. It's like the Oscars for people who give, some care to the whales in our ocean. And I just am so impressed with this. We've got
that is a really great program. I didn't know about it. That's just terrific.
Yeah, because off the West Coast, we've got fin whales, humpback, and blue. So those are 3 really important species. And the fact is, right now, Mark, we have thousands of them. On the East Coast, the right whale is down to 360 whales left. And we can't get to that. We can't get to that. We need those whales. So we're having this award show. This annual award show is having a positive effect. And so
absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. By the way, it was asked, how do you get $90 billion? I think Randy asked that question in damage because you mentioned.
From climate change related.
Mars asked that. How does climate change cost $90 billion in 1 year? Where's that money even going? You're talking about. Because it's pretty easy to get there, actually, when you think about it, with all the damage to infrastructure and, homes destroyed. And think about the damage that extreme weather and climate disasters of one sort or another does. And when you get the abacus out, it adds up to $90 billion. I mean, I agree. It seems like an extraordinary amount, but that's what Belinda's point is.
Well, look, you've got, all the infrastructure damage, you've got lost productivity. I mean, the fires that are raging right now here in California, I mean, they're 0% contained. And they've got, I think it's something like 400. Look, aren't they fabulous?
Oh, that's really great. Good catch on for those just listening, those are the awards for the shipping companies that slow down and save so many of these whales by slowing down in these various whale migration lanes. And so we're showing the trophies now that they hand out. That's really great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Well, and what's also really amazing is how these companies really responded to it, and one of the environmental organizations was sort of saying, well, no one wants to hit a whale, but as you were saying, it's sort of like the pigs that die in an overheated truck being transported, it has been seen as collateral damage. But the fact is they're big megafauna, and we love them. We love our big animals. And so the fact that these shipping companies, I mean, one of the guys who's based here in the States was saying, the owners of the company back in Japan are like, we want that trophy. We want to, they like the bragging rights of it, So, I think that, when we can get clever about these environmental negatives, we can turn a negative into a positive. And obviously, we need to, to do that with more things. But, when we have a win, we have to really celebrate it. And, and as I keep saying, you've got to really think about how you vote, in November, because this one means so much with where we're at right now. And the heat is crazy. I mean, did you see the story about the Olympians in Paris?
Yeah, tell that. We've got time. Tell that. I mean, okay, I know we're a little bit late, but
this
go
is
ahead.
Wild. So the French want to host the greenest Olympics ever. And they're going to be in competition with LA, who are having the 2028 Olympics, because they're really doubling down on making it green. But so one of the things that Europeans survive on with a lot less air conditioning than Americans. So what they did in the Olympic Village, and you've got to show the picture of the Olympic athletes' room, because man, is it bare bones. But in these dormitory style rooms, they've put in these water pipes that go through the floorboards. I mean, this is where you have elite athletes. If they want to get a coffee maker, a table, chairs, they have to apply for those. Otherwise, this is it, and your fan. And then you've got these pipes that are running under the floor, which will keep the rooms to, even in a heat wave, not going above 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, 79 is already pretty high. And what countries, the US, Britain, Canada, Australia, Germany have said, look, our elite athletes, we have to keep them cool. So they're going to be putting those air conditioning units that you can put in a room. They're going to be getting air conditioning units because they want their, elite athletes to be at the top of their game. And it is going to thwart what France is trying to do. But, last year, Paris got up to 90 degrees. Well, that's really hot for, an athlete to be, basically, competing in, let alone living in. And the fan with the cooling pipes under the floor, would reduce carbon emissions by half. But you do kind of get that countries are saying, hey, we're not sending the best of the best, into a condition that, into conditions that might not allow them to compete at the top of their game.
It's absolutely wild. It really is wild. God,
yeah.
It's, one of those things. But this is it. I mean, this is, again, these summers are getting so hot. And the challenge in beautiful Paris for the Olympics. And it is wild to think of these elite athletes reduced to sort of college dorm style situations. But man, reminds me of Brazil. Remember when they had the Olympics there in Brazil and the pollution and toxins were so thick in the waterways where they were having swimming races and boating races. Okay, so in one case there's swimming going on. I think there's like open swimming in some of these waterways. But let's leave that aside. I mean, that's clearly you're just you're basically swimming through sludge. But in the boaters, they warned the scullers, the people who are just rowing, that do not let any of the water hit you in the mouth. I mean, it's that toxic. I mean, this is how we have so toxified the world, that these are environments, even at the Olympics, there was no way to clean up these waterways. They're way too polluted. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're saying about the Seine in France.
Yeah.
They were supposed to have it all cleaned up. They were supposed to have it, they're testing the water. The mayor of France was going to swim to show how clean it was. Macron was going to leap in before the Olympics. And they had to delay the mayor's swim because tests showed E. coli and all types of fecal bacteria were still polluting this river. So they have to do the triathlon there. There's a couple of swimming events that are being held there. And one wonders, is it safe for these elite athletes to jump in?
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I wouldn't be wanting to jump into a river in any major city right now.
We can't wait to have the greenest and cleanest Olympics ever. We just can't find the planet to do it because it can't be anywhere here on this planet. Belinda, love our visits. Don't want to cut you short. Should you have anything else or not?
I think we've covered a lot of
I think so too, but I never want you to feel, I don't want you to feel like you're ever getting shortchanged. So that's why I ask. All right.
No, I don't.
Find Belinda across social media. Belinda Waymouth is Waymouth. We adore you and love these contributions every week. And I learned so much personally, so thank you. Belinda Waymouth, everybody. That's It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More.
It's the Planet Stupid. No, it's the Planet Stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What is up, everybody? We are wrapping up. I mean, I don't even want to say it, but I'm going to. What a day.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Don't even play, baby. I don't know about what's gone down today. One of those days, man. You know what I'm saying? Gail Guthrie. Did I mention her earlier?
You did mention her. Yeah, here she comes.
Here you go. HOF.
Big shout out.
Hall of Famer Gail Guthrie with a 10 spot. Thank you for the super sticker, Gail. And we have your statue there on Thompson Terrace in the metaverse. Yeah. Thank you so much, Gail.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gail. Marilyn Gunning, thank you for a 5 spot. What up, Marilyn? Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Albert loves the Chappelle. Thank you. Luis says, thank you for letting me vent and being my therapy session today and not charging me $200 an hour. LOL. Happy 4th all, he says, and thank you for the 5 spots.
Big shout out.
Happy 4th is the cry from Luis to all of you watching and listening. Another great show. Harry Magnan says, thank you, Harry.
Big shout out.
And thank you for the support in the 5 spot. I really appreciate you. I know you're a regular, and it means a lot that you make a contribution. So super, super appreciated here. We are dark on the 4th of July, and that's tomorrow.
Yep.
And as soon as we put the fires out that will be started by the fireworks, we'll come back. God, I'm so worried about those fireworks, man.
It's so untimely with the heat wave. The heat wave right around this time is very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just about caused Rothmann to burst a blood vessel, said, just give me the truth. Well, the thing about Rothmann, what I was trying to do was honor the commitment I'd made to the person who offered that hypothetical. Yeah. What would happen when a president, he just couldn't, and I couldn't dislodge Rothmann from the, well, it would never happen, Mark. Would not happen in this situation. I know it wouldn't, John. I'm asking you because the listener wants to know. Well, it absolutely wouldn't. There's just no way in which that would. I get it. God, it was so frustrating. But he's so smart, you know. So it's hard to, But that's why that was fun. There's a reason this place is fun.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Right. But I thought Albert was going to have to step in and break us up. I mean, it was really, it was pretty wild.
This is no picnic, no summer camp.
I was worried for a minute.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's been one of those days where I feel like I just need to give you a big hug.
Yes, thank you. Mm-hmm. I have so much to do. I've got to go to get a bunch of blood tests right now, and very excited about that. I wish there was a way we could just draw our own blood and mail it. I don't have to go. You have to drive so far to get the blood taken. So I'm working on a bunch of different things like that. So that's kind of what I've got going. But it should be a good day off tomorrow for everybody, right?
Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'll tell you that we return then on Friday, right, Kamish? And Friday, you'll have a Friday Fabulous Florida.
They seem to have their act together last week. It was hard to find the really wacky story. So hopefully, maybe they're tuning into the debate last week.
Okay. All right. Wow.
They're back to their usual antics.
Okay. I am looking forward to Friday. I also look forward to hearing about what happened on the 4th of July. And the story I've not told yet is the story about having been hospitalized over the weekend. And I'll tell that story because of the bizarre nature of it. I'm actually going to tell it on Monday and have Courtney chime in because she was with me. It was pretty wild. So, yeah, we've got a lot. It's crazy.
There's never been anything like this. I'm Sheriff Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Vote in the community section, the poll on Biden in the future.
Bye-bye.
Have a great 4th, everybody. Thanks for all the love. Really means a lot. Until tomorrow, until Friday. Bye-bye.